Hey, what's going on, everyone? Boylon here, and hope you're all enjoying your weekend. Today I'm going to be doing a new series of videos called Team Reviews, where I'm going to go over some of the more important teams in the game and what I think are the pros and cons of them. And for the first episode, we are going to be talking about Supernatural. I wanted to start off with the Supernatural team because of Ghost Rider and Elsa Bloodstone becoming more farmable earlier this month. And it's also a team that I've always wanted to level up, but I kind of left them for a little while due to Ghost Rider and Elsa being unfarmable, but that has changed. And I also wasn't super lucky on red stars with Ghost Rider either. I recently bought a 4 red star upgrade for him, and I think he is a great standalone character. I'll probably invest further red stars into him, I think, as well. So we're going to start off by going over each of the characters individually, and then I'm going to give my T4 recommendations for them as I go through them, and then I'm going to give some advice on how to use them in battle. And then I'm also going to give my recommendations for using them in Alliance War and who they're good against and what you can do against them. Then I'll give my final thoughts of the team as a whole within Marvel Strike Force. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we are going to start with the character who I think was released first, and that is Doctor Strange. Although feel free to comment if I'm wrong about this. I get a bit confused sometimes since I have been playing so long. I really do need to raise him up a little bit more. I think I was so focused on my Mystic gear going towards Asgardians that I kind of neglected some of these characters a little bit. I do have some good red stars for him though as well, so that helped. I pulled that a little while ago, and so I think I should gear him up a bit more. But anyways, Doctor Strange is the main support of the team, and you really don't want him going down early in the fight. The longer he can stay alive, the longer he can potentially bring back some of the other members back to life if necessary. So let's start with his basic Bolt of Balthak. This is a fairly normal basic, but it does apply offense down, which is great, and the damage is piercing, although Doctor Strange isn't known for having a huge attack stat, so this is largely for its control potential. In terms of his kit overall, I wouldn't put this T4 as a high priority, mostly because it doesn't guarantee 2 turns of offense down. If it did, maybe I might consider it a bit more, but he does have better skills worth investing in. Doctor Strange's special Winds of Watoomb is really where he starts to shine. He gets this at turn 1, and this is typically what he ends up using unless there is a reason to save it. Basically, he's able to flip all positive effects into negative effects, on top of applying additional random negative effects to the primary target. And if for some reason at 90% chance he doesn't flip them all or fails a focus check, then it is cleared instead. Now I think that both the flipping and the removal has a chance to fail with a bad focus check, but please comment down below if this is not the case. I'm pretty sure I have in some cases seen this part fail, but usually only when going up against big tanks or like Jessica Jones or other characters with really high resistance. I also would not recommend putting T4s into this ability, as an extra 10% chance on the flipping really isn't worth it, putting in that many oranges. Doctor Strange's ultimate Book of Vishanti is where he gets a lot of his support tag from. This allows him to revive a dead ally with up to 40% health at level 6, and does a little bit of extra healing to the rest of the team. This is a good candidate for a T4 upgrade, as if you're using the full Supernatural team, this can actually revive 2 members of the team, so one of them at 65% and the other one at 50%. I don't have it myself, but I'm pretty sure this is verified. I had some people in my alliance who did actually upgrade this, and they told me that was the case. This can really turn the tide of battle if you're doing more of a punch across or punch up rather than down, especially in Alliance War when there might be some tricky battles. Definitely a skill worth investing into if you're thinking of going hard on the Supernatural team. And finally, we have Doctor Strange's Master of the Arcane Arts. This one has a low chance to fill the lowest ally's speed bar at level 4 by 30%, or 40% at level 5. Some text was added for the Supernatural as well, which heals him for up to 5% of his max HP when a positive effect is applied to the enemy. So he can heal back up a little bit using this. This ability does shine a bit with his T4 upgrade, which allows him to gain extra deflex up to 5 when a positive effect is applied to the enemies. This really increases Strange's survivability by quite a bit. If you're facing teams like S.H.I.E.L.D., Asgardians, or the new Merc Taskmaster, just off the top of my head, that apply any positive effects, and that really helps him out. Not only does he heal, but he gets deflex as well. I would actually put this at a slightly higher priority than Strange's ultimate by just a little bit, because if he doesn't survive, then he won't get to his ultimate anyways. So I would say this is probably more of a priority than the ult, but both are good if you're investing heavily into this team. Strange really is the backbone to the team, though, and you really want him to live. And if you're fighting against the supernatural team, then you want to make sure you take him out first to stop those revives from happening. And if you don't have him yet, or enough shards, you can find him in Mystic 2-9 to farm outside of some of the other orbs that he's available in as well. And second, we got our crazy magician Mordo. I believe he was released just before Scarlet Witch in a Blitz back in 2018, but if I got the order wrong, then please correct me down below. I did take this guy up a little bit more than I did Strange, because I relied heavily on him in the Mystic campaign back in the day when I was going through it for the first time. But starting with Mordo's basic, Arcane Scourge, is really a great bread and butter control move. Basically applies 1 to 2 negative effects randomly to the primary target, which really is one of 3, either offense down, defense down, or speed down. I think they need to clarify this a bit better, because these days there's other negative effects like disrupt and things like that, but it only actually is one of those 3. The T4 upgrade isn't terrible, but I also don't think it's necessary unless you got like a 7 red star Mordo and you're going ham on him or something. Mordo's special Mesmerize is also a great control move. At level 6, it has a 50% chance to apply stun to the primary target, and if not, then blind. Plus 50% chance to blind 3 targets, which is great. You can essentially blind up to 4 targets, and then also has a 50% chance to slow 2 more targets. The T4 upgrade is debatable, depending on what you're using him for. Sometimes that 100% chance to stun can be very clutch in many instances, especially when using him in some of the challenges as well. I don't think it's completely necessary, but is one to consider if you're investing into Mordo. Mordo's ultimate, Demons of Danak, is is definitely amazing for fighting those healing heavy teams like Shield, Asgardians, and even the new Merc Taskmaster team as well. The 2-turn heal block is really great, and combined with Scarlet Witch, this can add an extra turn and really cripple them. This move can also land while he is blind, since it can't miss with this. Great move, but not worth any T4s just for a bit of extra damage. Now Mordo's passive has seen some upgrades since the Supernaturals became a team, as there was some text added to him for this. Which allows him to heal the most injured Supernatural ally for 15 or 25% if you have the T4s. Aside from this, it also heals himself on the death of any character, which can include characters like Summons and Greg's as well from Hela. He also grants ability energy to himself and to the other supernatural ally that he is healing. This really is an amazing passive, and definitely his top priority T4 if you're investing into the team. At the T4, each death of any character will heal an injured supernatural ally for 25%, and he's just throwing an ability energy bonanza. This works great against Asgardians or Shield after Nick Fury summons his minions. And that's it for Mordo. Definitely a great character, not just for the team, but also for the Cosmic and Controller challenges, and of course the Mystic campaign. If you get any T4s for him, then I definitely recommend the passive hands down. And if you're not capped out on Mordo, you can find him in the Arena store to farm. And more recently, he's been available in the Alpha Raid Orb, although that orb is likely subject to change in the future. And third is our favorite Avengers Witch, now turned supernatural, and that is Scarlet Witch. Man, I remember her event was the first one that I never finished all the way through because it could only use Mystic characters, and back then they weren't very great at the time. Overall, she hasn't changed too much since release, though, with just a few tweaks when Supernaturals became a thing. Starting off with her basic Hex Bolt is quite similar to Mordo's basic, other than it does piercing damage, but otherwise the same thing, 1 to 2 random negative effects, which again is only going to be offense, defense, or speed down. Her special Warp Reality is a huge bane to anyone fighting her in modes like Dark Dimension and other things, but this helps the survivability of the team and works well with Mordo and Doctor Strange, who have ways to heal themselves. So this can redistribute the health to everyone else. It also applies deflect now, and has a 50% chance to apply defense up to each ally. I'm not even going to bother with the vision text though, because nobody really uses them anymore, sadly. Maybe we'll get an Avengers rework one day, but that would break up so many characters. The T4 upgrade isn't hugely necessary in my opinion, but if you really need extra survivability, I could see its usefulness. Scarlet Witch's ultimate Chaos Wave is really where we get into the powers of all the team's debuffs. This move does damage and prolongs all negative effects on the targets by 1 extra turn, which can be pretty huge when all the others go before her in the turn order. It also has 50% chance to apply defense down and is unavoidable, so she can't be blinded as well. I could see putting T4s into this, but with all the debuffs they are probably carrying, I don't think it's completely necessary either. Scarlet Witch's passive, Power of Chthon, was unchanged in the Supernatural patch. It has just a 40% chance to spread negative effects around from target to target, 50% if you get the T4s. Nothing stellar, but it can be useful in times, but definitely not worth using T4s on. And that's Scarlet Witch. If I had to choose one T4 to invest in her, it would probably be the Ultimate Chaos Wave, but I don't think you really need to invest any oranges into her if you don't want to, as I think the others are much more deserving for it than she is. If you do need some shards for her, though, you can farm her out of the Arena Store, or the Beta Raid Orb, which is coming soon again. Although the contents of these Greek orbs are normally subject to change. Sometimes they change from time to time. And I think Elsa actually came out last, but we're going to save the best for last. Elsa had her own event last October or so, and she's one of the main damage dealers for the team, outside of Ghost Rider. She's the team's blaster, and also recently became farmable alongside Ghost Rider this month. Starting with her basic, it's basically a barrage of piercing damage, which attacks up to 6 times for a bunch of piercing damage. This one is actually quite nice for a basic, because it's a good way to knock through things like evades, deflects, or death proofs, since it hits multiple times. Her special trick shot attacks twice, once to the primary target and a second time to the most injured enemy, ignoring taunt and stealth. It's like a Deadpool special attack or a Corvus Glaive more recently. Not really worth putting T4s into for the extra damage, unless maybe you happen to have a 6 or 7 Red Star Elsa. Her ultimate Scatterguns, though, she gets at turn 1, and is a good chunk of extra damage. She gets offense up for 2 turns, and does a bunch of damage to the primary target and those adjacent. This move also does get more damage per supernatural ally, and again, when it's upgraded by the T4s, it does seem to do quite a bit of extra damage. I think maybe 70% total with the whole team. But again, you might only want to get this if you got big red stars on her for some extra damage. Elsa's passive is quite cool. If she misses a target for any reason because she's blind or hits into an evade or whatever, then she attacks the target again for damage. The move also gives Mystic allies a bit of crit chance, and she gains extra accuracy. I do think this one is a bit weird, because if you've ever used her in combat, fighting characters with high dodge chance like Vision or any of the Spider-Man characters, she can actually miss and then use this passive and then miss again because they dodge that. I really wish this attack just kept shooting until she hits them, but it doesn't seem to work that way, and it's kind of annoying actually. Now that she's farmable though, I'm looking forward to getting her to 7 stars and seeing what kind of damage she can actually pump out when she's maxed. But you can farm her in Nexus 5-3, which is actually pretty generous, and that's not too far into the game, so it's pretty accessible for early to mid-game players. And finally, we have the man himself, Ghost Rider, and by far the best character on the team, and also probably one of the best standalone characters to invest in as well out of the team. The dude with the flaming skull and motorcycle is not one to be trifled with. Ghost Rider's basic, Hellfire, is a pretty standard attack, but it does apply bleed for 2 turns at level 6, which is pretty decent for a basic. His special Hell Cycle, other than the awesome animation that it does, is his turn 1 move, attacks primary and adjacent targets for damage, and applies 2 bleeds. It also can't be blocked or missed, so he will land this if he gets blinded, which is great. I would put this T4 as a second priority for him. It's good, but unfortunately the 2 turns of bleed only affects the primary target and not the adjacent ones. So it could be better, but it's still a good chunk of damage if you're investing heavily into Ghost Rider. Penance Stare is his typical turn 2 move. This is his ultimate. It is really strong with the high amount of piercing damage and plus applying offense and defense down to the target. He also gains a significant amount of drain on this move if an ally has died before he has taken his turn for this, which is how he gets charged as well. What's interesting about this drain, though, is he'll actually heal if he kills a target. Unlike other characters with drain, like Drax and I think Killmonger as well, normally they don't heal when they actually kill a target. So don't ask me why this is the case for Ghost Rider, but he does, and the Fox-Nex logic. So, and finally, his passive Spirit of Vengeance is pretty loaded. Firstly, he grants 2 ability energy to all supernatural allies if he dies. This usually is a good way to getting Doctor Strange closer to his revive, since it takes a few turns to get it normally. Secondly, if a non-summoned ally dies, he counterattacks for a boatload of damage, and he gains charged, which is usually what he uses to drain on his Penance Stare. He can have up to 5 charged, but this usually doesn't matter too much. And he generates 2 ability energy for himself as well. He also fills his own speed bar and the team's speed bar by 3% every time a negative effect is applied to an enemy, which is almost all the time, and it really snowballs hard since the majority of the team, other than Elsa, has a way to apply negative effects. And finally, he gives himself and the Supernaturals 20% extra HP at level 4 and 30% focus for himself and all other Mystics. And since the Supernaturals are all Mystics, that applies to them as well. This skill is definitely a top priority for T4s, as not only does it increase his counterattack damage by a whopping 100% damage, but he also gains 3 ability energy on an ally death instead of 2, and increases the team's health by 20%, which is great for survivability. I really like passives like this that has a wide impact to the team, so definitely worth the investment. And overall, Ghost Rider is a very, very solid character, and I'm glad that he's finally farmable, as I think I'll be taking this guy up pretty far. And with Chaos Theory coming back around soon, I might consider him for more Red Star upgrades. He's also quite valid for the City Lane for Dark Dimension 3, and you can farm him in Cosmic 3-9, which is a bit of a mid-game node, but not too tough to get to. Definitely recommend farming this guy, whether you level the team or not. He is a great standalone character. And so I just wanted to go through the Supernatural team in Blitz at Tier 8, just to show people how to use them and in what ability order that you'd want to use the attacks. They're usually pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to go through, we're going to try this Defenders team here. This is punching up a little bit, and we'll probably do another match after that. Hopefully I can get a bit of a stronger team just to show how good that the Supernaturals are here. They're usually quite good at punching up a good chunk, but you definitely want characters like Ghost Rider and Elsa to be preferably on the stronger side, since that's where most of your damage is coming from. So here with Ghost Rider, you start off, he's the one who goes first, and he applies all the bleeds. So for the defenders, you probably want to focus on either Iron Fist or Punisher first. And so we do get the bleeds. Does a pretty good chunk of damage. It even actually lands a bleed onto Jessica Jones as well. So Elsa then goes second with her ultimate, and this does another big chunk of damage as well. And then we're going to get Mordo here, and so we're probably going to apply the heal block. What you could do, alternatively, depending on who you're playing against, you could use the blind to try and get the stun on Punisher. Normally that's what I do, but I think actually the bleeds are going to kill him, and they'll be heal blocked for a little bit as well. But if he isn't as close to dying, definitely try stunning or blinding Punisher, which would then make him miss his ult. We do get a counterattack there, though. So you did see that she did, I think I missed on Daredevil, and then Elsa actually countered that by hitting Daredevil again. So this is where I would probably just use the basic on Punisher, just in case he survives somehow. He has an offense down, although he's dead. And here, this is normally what you would do is extend all the debuffs, although Jessica Jones, if she gets around to it, is going to clear some of this anyways on her next turn. And now, this really depends here with the ultimate Penance Stare. I don't have any charge because nobody's died, but it also doesn't look like anyone's in danger of dying. So I'm just going to use that on Luke Cage, see if I can get some debuffs on him, which I do. And here we're going to go off and finish off Jessica Jones because she's almost dead. And might be able to get the stun on Daredevil here. And we did get the stun on him. And now we'd flip with Winds of Watum. So it really depends on what team you're facing off at. You wouldn't always use Winds of Watum on turn 1, but it depends on the team that you're fighting him with. He does get his ultimate really late in the game though, so normally someone has to die or the battle has to go on really long for him to get that off. And now everyone has deflect, so that's good. So the survivability is really great for this team, and it's pretty much over at this point. So that was about a 30k punch up. Nothing too huge, but they are quite a strong team. So let's try and get another match in here and see if we can find a stronger team to fight. I would love to find a shield team. There is an Asgardian team here though, so I kind of want to see how this goes. This is about a 40k punch up. I'm not super confident that they could take X-Men, but Asgardian's a really common defense team that you would see on Alliance War. Now I know this is Blitz and not Alliance War, but let's see if we can get them down at 40k. So this is roughly about a 20% punch up based on my team power. And the way you'd play this out would be slightly different than how you would with the defenders, against the defenders rather. So here we are starting up, and this can really make a huge difference depending on who Loki targets with the mind control. Sometimes that can kill someone out of the gate. So we're gonna try and focus down the Thor's in the center here, so if we can get all 3 of them. I don't want to kill... you can kill Greg, and that does actually give Mordo some healing and ability energy, but I don't really want to get rid of the... I don't want to lose the turn bar. Right. So we're going to start in the middle here, and we're going to try and get Thor down as quickly as we can, if that's possible. So we did get that, and what's great about Mordo is you really want to get that heal block on the team, because they do the Asgardians heal a huge chunk of their HP. So a heal block for 2 turns really is quite crippling to them. So we did land it on, I think, everyone except for Loki and Sif. And we're still alive after Death Knives as well. So now we can flip all of this. And hopefully this will flip most of the regenerations into bleeds. And we might even get a little bit more on top of that. And we do. Everyone's out of stealth. It didn't get rid of the defense up with Sif though. But now we can take all of these debuffs and then we can extend it. Which is... we do get a passive by Thor, but we're still alive. There was a little bit of healing here because, well, Thor just died and Greg died again, so there was a bit more healing. Doctor Strange just died, and Ghost Rider just counterattacked with his passive. So we are missing Elsa. She was kind of one of my weaker team members, though. Unfortunately, we didn't get the heal block on Sif, though. So we're going to Penance Stare. We do have the... Oh, he is heal blocked. Oh, he didn't actually heal from that, which is unfortunate. Maybe I should have waited. We are going to heal block again, though. I thought it was stunning, but I think we're just going to heal block because they're almost dead here on the side. And that got a lot of... We did get the heal block on Sif that time, and there's a bunch of ability energy just thrown out, which is from killing all of those characters. And Mordo's at full health again because they're all mystics, mostly, so he gets a lot of healing as well. So it's what I say, the ability energy bonanza. Doctor Strange will be able to heal, we'll be able to revive next turn if we get that far, and so we can redistribute this health from Mordo to everyone else. Everyone's doing pretty well so far, so we'll get some more bleeds onto Sif here, and we might actually get to Doctor Strange's turn maybe here, and so we'll revive Elsa back. So we didn't really need it, but there we go. And that was a 40k punch up. Now this might be a little bit tougher on Alliance War because Loki gets he gets a taunt on his mind control, and I think Heimdall gets some buff. They all kind of get some extra Alliance War buffs. But Asgardians are like one of the top teams to fight in Alliance War, so this is a good chance to practice using Blitz mode on them. And that was a 40k punch up. Typically you can punch up, I would say, about 10%, 15%. With Supernaturals against Asgardians, depending on how buff they are. If there's a tier 14 Hela, or for example, you might want to watch out for that. But for the most part, Supernaturals actually do quite well against them. And since I don't really have any fancy infographics or anything like that, I'm going to show you guys who I think Supernaturals work good against. I think you can beat the Asgardians with Supernaturals, but I would typically punch across as well, and be careful to watch out for any T14 characters, which might make you want to punch down rather than up. You could also do well against the defenders with Supernatural, but you do have to watch out for Punisher or Daredevil, beating into Mordo, especially since he is the single villain on the team. Supernatural is also pretty good against fighting Shield, or even the Coulson variant. About a punch across, but I would be careful of Coulson and who he might throw a taunt on. So depending on who your strongest Supernatural member is, but Strange is very good at flipping all of those positive buffs as well that Shield normally carries. And ignore my Shuri here, but they also do quite well against the traditional hero brawlers, and even if they include Captain Marvel, I have had success punching across against them as well. And the Merc Taskmaster is also another team that has a lot of buffs, and if you can get through Taskmaster's initial barrage, then it's usually quite easy to win from there with the Supernaturals. And Sinister Six and Kree minions, the Kree minion team as well. Those are two other teams that the Supernatural can beat in Alliance War on offense. So those are another two teams. The Supernatural team in general is quite good. There also is the Wakandan team, which they're good against, which I don't really have here to show you guys in my roster because I don't actually use them as a Wakandan team anymore. But there's quite a few teams that Supernatural are good at beating. And that's why I'm kind of talking about War offense. I wouldn't really recommend using them on the defense because Supernatural, their ability energies can be a bit quite long. They also don't have a tank. So I think it's kind of easy to beat them on the defense, but definitely great on the offense in the hands of the player. That's another thing too. So if you put them on the defense, they're going to play as if the AI would, which is in the turn order of their abilities, not always the best. Where the Supernatural team really does shine, though, is in the Mystic campaign. So all of them are Mystic characters, and they definitely are really great going through the entire chapter. If you can happen to get a hand on them, Doctor Strange might be a bit tough for newer players because he has Mystic 2-9, so you do have to get to this point to get them. But they're quite usable even with 3 or 4 Supernaturals. You don't even need the whole team. But if you had all 5 of them, you can definitely get through the whole chapter no problem. And actually this Mystic 3-9, for those who do want to farm Vision, this is what we call the God King Thor level, and this was really challenging back in the day. And I even did use Scarlet Witch and Mordo as my main characters for this level. But if you had all 5 of the Supernatural characters, I imagine you'd have almost no problem with this. Although of course a lot of other people do use characters like Hela and Loki as well for these levels. But if you need a team to get through the Mystic campaign, then definitely think about the Supernaturals for that. And well, that's it for me for my dive into the Supernatural team. But I do want to say that they are a well-rounded team. The only major problem is they lack a specific tank. So they are very offense heavy, and if you lose too many in the battle, and especially Doctor Strange, things can go south. But if he can survive, then he can bring a lot of them back. I think definitely a team that people should look into now, though, since Ghost Rider and Elsa are farmable at this point. It is really worth bringing a team up when they're all farmable rather than ones who aren't, since it's a bit easier to get their stats higher. But that's all from me today, guys, and I hope you enjoyed my first episode of the Team Review series. And if you guys enjoyed this, then comment down below who I should do next, or any thoughts that you have on the Supernatural team. Of course, if you liked my video today, then please hit that like button and consider subscribing to see more content from me about Marvel Strike Force. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend, and until next time, guys, stay safe. Boylon signing out.